In 1896, in the dry sands of Egypt, archaeologists uncovered fragments of a text that would shake the foundations of Western religion. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene had survived centuries of suppression, hidden away, condemned, and nearly destroyed by those who feared its message. Why would church authorities go to such lengths to erase this specific gospel from history? The answer becomes apparent when you understand what it teaches. Salvation doesn't require priests, churches, or external authority figures. This ancient text reveals that Mary Magdalene, not Peter, was entrusted with Jesus' most profound spiritual knowledge. It presents a vision of spirituality where your direct experience of the divine matters more than any religious doctrine. The truth that was almost lost forever might be exactly what your spiritual journey needs. The suppressed leadership of Mary Magdalene. A woman stands before Jesus' male disciples, sharing revelations challenging everything they thought they knew. Peter reacts with disbelief, questioning if Jesus truly spoke privately with a woman over them. The tension is palpable, highlighting a struggle over who controls access to divine truth. The Gospel of Mary reveals what early Christians tried to erase. Jesus entrusted his most profound teachings to Mary Magdalene. While others grappled with parables, Mary received clear insights. She remained at the crucifixion, witnessed the resurrection, and was given Jesus' final message to deliver. These are not the actions of a secondary figure. Early church leaders faced an uncomfortable truth. A woman possessed spiritual insight surpassing theirs. Mary's gospel describes visions and teachings that bypassed institutional channels. She received gnosis directly. Modern archaeology supports this, with the Nag Hammadi library showing Mary as Jesus' closest confidant. In the Gospel of Philip, she's called his companion, implying a deep partnership. The real threat wasn't just a woman holding authority, it was what her authority represented. Levi defends Mary, asking, "If the Savior made her worthy, who are you to reject her?" This question challenges religious control. Mary's leadership showed that spiritual wisdom wasn't confined to titles or gender. Anyone, women, outcasts, the marginalized, could access divine truth without intermediaries. Church fathers understood the implications. If believers followed Mary's example, the ecclesiastical structure could crumble. Why confess sins to a priest when, as Mary taught, sin is a construct, a tool used to manipulate through fear? Why tithe to basilicas when the kingdom resides within? The suppression wasn't merely about sexism, it was about maintaining a spiritual monopoly. Modern scholarship confirms this power struggle. Mary appears first in all 4 canonical gospel lists of female followers, signaling her importance. Augustine later called her apostle to the apostles, acknowledging her foundational role. Yet official traditions reduced her to a penitent prostitute or passive observer. The pattern is clear: minimize the woman who embodied self-sufficient spirituality. What survives in the Gospel of Mary reveals a radically different early Christianity. Her teachings describe ascending past spiritual rulers through self-knowledge alone. Imagine first-century believers hearing this. No need for bishops, no required rituals, just direct inner awakening. Accepting Mary's authority meant surrendering institutional power and breaking chains. Sin, the greatest misunderstanding. Imagine being told your whole life that sin is a permanent stain on your soul, only to discover the concept was completely misunderstood. Traditional Christianity teaches that sin creates an impassable barrier between humanity and God, requiring priestly intervention to bridge the gap. But the Gospel of Mary presents a radical alternative. Sin isn't about moral failure, it's about spiritual forgetfulness. losing sight of your true nature and mistaking the material world for ultimate reality. Mary's Gospel suggests we sin when we identify too strongly with our physical existence. Picture this. Ancient teachings describe what neuroscientists now call the default mode network, that constant mental chatter that creates our sense of being separate individuals. Modern psychology confirms how we confuse our true selves with temporary roles, jobs, and social identities. The Gospel of Mary recognized this 2,000 years earlier, framing it as the root of all suffering. If sin is misunderstanding our divine nature, you don't need confessionals or intermediaries. You need awakening. Mary's Gospel offers practical methods for this realization, preserved despite centuries of suppression. She describes ascending past archons, not by following rituals but through direct inner knowledge. This wasn't about earning forgiveness, it was about remembering who you truly are. Church authorities understood the threat immediately. Their entire power structure relied on controlling access to forgiveness. If sin wasn't a moral stain but spiritual ignorance, their sacraments became unnecessary. Why confess to a priest when the problem was simply forgetting your divine origin? The Gospel of Mary turns the traditional view upside down. Salvation comes through knowledge, not punishment. Modern neuroscience echoes Mary's insights. Studies on meditation show how quieting the default mode network leads to feelings of unity and connection, precisely what Mary described as transcending the material illusion. The brain's tendency to create a separate self mirrors what ancient Gnostics called the false god of this world. Both traditions agree that liberation comes from seeing through this illusion. The Gospel of Mary doesn't dismiss moral responsibility, it reframes it. Actions matter, but not because an external judge keeps score. Harmful behavior naturally arises when we forget our interconnected nature. Mary's teachings suggest that true ethics emerge spontaneously once we awaken to reality. This explains why church leaders couldn't tolerate her gospel. It made morality an internal compass, rather than a set of imposed rules. Consider how differently we might live if we interpreted sin as Mary did. Addiction, greed, and violence are all symptoms of mistaking temporary pleasures for lasting fulfillment. The solution isn't shame or punishment, but remembering our true nature. This perspective aligns with modern therapeutic approaches that treat destructive behaviors as coping mechanisms for deeper spiritual disconnection. The illusion of material reality. What if the world around you, the chair you're sitting on, the device in your hands, isn't fundamentally real? The Gospel of Mary presents this idea, describing material reality as a projection of consciousness. This concept, once considered heretical, now finds confirmation in modern physics. Traditional Christianity teaches that the physical world is solid and fallen, requiring church sacraments to navigate. But Mary's Gospel suggests that matter is an illusion to be seen through, not a prison to escape from. Quantum physics reveals that solid matter is 99.99% empty space, much like a seemingly solid glass of water, mostly air between molecules. Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, stated, "There is no matter as such." This mirrors Mary's description of forms dissolving into pure light when truly understood. Ancient texts describe what scientists now call quantum entanglement, particles remaining connected across vast distances, instantly influencing each other. Mary spoke of a similar interconnectedness, where all things emerge from and return to a single source. The implications shake the foundations of religious authority. If matter is fundamentally insubstantial, what purpose do holy water, relics, or physical churches serve? David Bohm's implicate order theory gives scientific language to Mary's insight, proposing that reality unfolds from deeper, invisible patterns, exactly what Mary described as reality's roots beyond physical forms. The Church couldn't allow this knowledge to spread, as their power depended on people believing in a solid, fallen world requiring their intervention. Modern experiments confirm this view. Quantum particles behave differently when observed, suggesting consciousness shapes reality. This aligns with Mary's teaching that the mind sees visions, shaping our experience. Traditional religion insists the material world is objectively real and separate from God. But Mary's Gospel and modern physics agree that separation is an illusion. The boundaries between objects, between you and the world, aren't as fixed as they appear. Consider how differently we might live if we took this seriously. The stress of protecting possessions, the fear of physical threats, the obsession with appearances, all based on mistaking the illusion for reality. Imagine the material world as a stage set that can be dismantled once you see behind the illusion. This isn't mystical speculation, it's measurable neural activity. The political dimension becomes clear when you trace history's suppression of these ideas. Churches built massive stone cathedrals while condemning those who said matter was illusion. If followers realized they could access divine reality directly, the entire power structure collapsed. Your innate divine connection. Imagine discovering that everything you were told about needing a priest to reach God was hiding a simpler truth. The Gospel of Mary reveals that divine connection lives within you. Traditional Christianity built a system around intermediaries, priests to forgive sins, sacraments to convey grace, and churches to house God's presence. Mary's Gospel dismisses these layers. When Jesus tells her, "The kingdom is within you," he's handing you a map to your own awakening. Modern near-death experiences echo Mary's teachings. Thousands report encountering unconditional love and interconnectedness beyond any religious framework. Picture atheists, Christians, and agnostics, all describing encounters with a light that knows them intimately. Researchers like Bruce Grayson catalog these shared elements: life reviews, telepathic communication, and dissolution of the ego. These aren't religious experiences, they're human ones. Mary's Gospel describes similar transcendent states accessible through inner stillness, not rituals. Contemporary spirituality mirrors this shift. Dolores Cannon's concept of volunteer souls aligns with Mary's vision of awakened guides. Enlightenment isn't reserved for saints or clergy. It's available to anyone willing to turn inward. The Church suppressed this knowledge because it undermined its role as gatekeepers. If peasants could access divine truth through meditation, what need would there be for papal decrees or tithes? Modern mindfulness practices offer secular versions of Mary's methods. Neurological studies show meditation quiets the default mode network, the brain's ego center, creating states of unity consciousness. Ancient Gnostic techniques aimed for similar results, observing thoughts without attachment to recognize their illusory nature. Mary's Gospel warns against being troubled and doubting by external voices, advice that could have come from a contemporary meditation teacher. Today's mindfulness apps don't threaten institutional power. Church leaders feared this democratization of spiritual experience. Historians note how medieval mystics like Meister Eckhart were condemned for preaching inner divinity. Consider Marguerite Porete, burned at the stake for writing that souls could unite with God without church mediation. Mary's Gospel posed an earlier, broader threat. Religious hierarchies became obsolete if direct connection was possible. Psychology now confirms the benefits of internal exploration. Studies link self-reflection with emotional resilience, just as Mary's teachings connected self-knowledge with liberation. The rise of trauma-informed therapy echoes her rejection of shame-based spirituality. Mary framed human struggles as forgetfulness of our true nature, a perspective modern therapists adopt when helping clients reframe negative self-concepts. The political implications remain relevant. Authoritarian systems thrive when people believe guidance must come from external authorities. Mary's gospel empowers individuals to trust their inner wisdom. Progressive spiritual movements today resonate with her suppressed teachings. They share a common thread: you don't need permission to awaken. Escaping the material trap. What if everything stressing you today, bills, conflicts, health worries, isn't your fundamental reality but a temporary veil over the deeper truth? The Gospel of Mary offers concrete methods to awaken from this trance of material identification. While traditional religion keeps followers bargaining with a heavenly scorekeeper, do this ritual, avoid that sin. Mary's approach cuts straight to liberation through direct experience. Mary's techniques mirror what neuroscientists now call meta-awareness, the ability to observe your thoughts without getting tangled in them. Imagine ancient practitioners beneath olive trees, practicing what brain scans now show alters neural architecture. Long-term meditators develop thicker prefrontal cortexes, governing self-awareness while shrinking the amygdala, fear's command center. Mary called this the stillness beyond thought, a state where the mind sees visions unfiltered by ego. The Church understood the threat these practices posed. If peasants could access divine truth through quiet sitting, what need for papal indulgences or confession booths? Historical records show contemplative orders, like the medieval Beguines, persecuted for teaching direct communion with God. Mary's Gospel describes bypassing the wickedness of the rulers, likely referencing both spiritual and institutional gatekeepers, through inner awakening alone. Modern seekers report breakthroughs through meditation, psychedelics, or sudden epiphanies, proving this is a recoverable human capacity. Mary's roadmap of consciousness progression aligns with contemporary models. Psychologists like Claire Graves and Ken Wilber chart similar stages, from chaotic survival to rigid belief systems and fluid self-awareness. Mary's Gospel describes ascending past four powers, likely representing mindset shifts to reach pure presence. Ancient texts mention daily practices for observing mental patterns, recognizing when thoughts arise from fear versus wisdom. Cognitive therapy now teaches similar detachment strategies to treat depression and anxiety. The political implications explain the suppression. Empowered individuals don't unquestioningly follow authorities. During Christianity's institutionalization, bishops marginalized mystics while standardizing sacraments requiring priestly mediation. Archaeological findings reveal that early house churches practiced silent contemplation before later councils mandated ritual uniformity. Mary's Gospel, emphasizing inner authority, couldn't coexist with centralized control. Modern life amplifies material traps. Digital notifications barrage our attention, keeping us identified with temporary roles: consumer, employee, and social media persona. Mary's methods offer antidotes. Observing breath cycles grounds awareness in the timeless present. Noticing how emotions manifest physically, tight shoulders with anxiety, warmth with joy, reveals their impermanent nature. Brain imaging shows such practices reduce default mode network activity, that inner narrator insisting, "I am my problems." The Gospel warns us how oppressive forces operate, convincing us we're limited, separate, and unworthy. Sound familiar? Advertising thrives on manufactured inadequacy, and political systems benefit from distracted populations. Mary countered this by teaching disciples to find the Son of Man within you, recognizing inherent wholeness beneath conditioned lack. How might you apply these insights to your own life today? Why this matters now. Imagine how your phone's notifications trigger anxiety, much like ancient fears of divine judgment, trapping you in cycles of reactivity. The Gospel of Mary is relevant today because it addresses this modern dilemma. As traditional religion's influence wanes, people recognize how institutions often compound spiritual hunger. Pew Research shows that 30% of Americans now identify as spiritual but not religious, seeking direct experience over doctrinal compliance. Mary's Gospel speaks to this shift, offering tools to navigate a world filled with distractions posing as necessities. Mary's teachings provide an antidote to digital age fragmentation. Ancient meditation techniques are retooled for modern overwhelm. When she advises disciples to stand firm in the face of suffering, it resonates with today's doom-scrolling habits. Neuroscience confirms that the brain's threat detection systems activate similarly whether facing a predator or a hostile tweet. Mary's methods, observing thoughts without attachment, mirror cognitive behavioral therapy's strategies for breaking negative thought loops. She framed it as awakening from collective illusion rather than treating individual pathology. The Church feared this knowledge because it transforms power dynamics. During social upheaval, whether first-century Roman occupation or today's climate crises, institutions want obedient adherents, not self-directed seekers. Mary's Gospel empowers individuals to find stability within, making them less susceptible to external control. Modern researchers observe this in psychedelic-assisted therapy patients, who often report decreased authoritarianism alongside increased ecological awareness. These aren't theoretical ideals, they're measurable shifts in worldview that parallel Mary's description of transcending the ruler's limitations. Modern science now validates Mary's insights in unexpected ways. Quantum physics confirms interconnectedness, psychology recognizes the constructed nature of self, and neuroscience maps how meditation alters perception, all concepts central to her teachings. When she describes reality as arising from divine thought, it aligns with Donald Hoffman's theory that perception edits reality for survival, not truth. This convergence suggests her gospel wasn't mystical speculation, but observation of consciousness mechanics, suppressed for being too empowering. Consider how this plays out in daily life. The same brain networks that convince you you're separate from others also generate dissatisfaction with your body, job, or relationships. Mary's methods interrupt this neural habit. Historical records show early Christians practicing her techniques, sitting silently, observing mental patterns, and recognizing thoughts as passing weather. Contemporary apps like Headspace secularize these practices but strip away their revolutionary potential. Realizing you aren't your thoughts makes you harder to manipulate. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene reveals what organized religion often obscures. Your direct connection to the divine needs no intermediary. Picture silencing the noise of doctrines and hierarchies to hear your own inner wisdom instead. That suppressed voice urging "look within" might be what early Christians feared most. Try noticing where you've accepted spiritual limitations. When anxiety arises, observe it like passing weather rather than your identity. Neuroscience confirms these small shifts rewire perception over time. 2 millennia ago, this knowledge was outlawed as dangerous. Today, it's an open secret. Transformation begins when you stop seeking outside authority and start trusting your awakened awareness.